Hey everybody, it's Paul Fidinich with the VIP Home Team at eXp Realty coming to you again. The hottest topic lately has been interest rates, and you might have seen my last video. The Fed has been raising interest rates, and that has a tremendous effect on our mortgage and ability to qualify for a mortgage and in our home buyer power. What is that going to do, and how's that going to affect your home buying process? So I have reached out to a really good friend of mine, Laurence Heisler, at the mortgage firm. He is one of our preferred lenders that we partner with, and that's for many reasons. Number one, he's been in the business for over 25 years, so his experience is just amazing. He's been around, since prior to the crash in the 2000s, as well as the mortgage firm. The mortgage firm's been in business for about 30 years or so, and they're well respected in the industry. So it's really important to talk to people that have been around for a long time and have experienced the ups and downs of real estate. Now, Lawrence also has a team, and I've worked with several members of his team, and I can tell you that his whole team is just well qualified. They're well respected. And one of the biggest things, a big pet peeve of mine, is communication. And the thing that we find out the most is that their communication skills are second to none. They keep everybody informed during the process, which is really huge and so critically important in the home buying process. So I brought Laurence Heisler in today to help us discuss the mortgages, what we're seeing in the industry today, and then at the end we're going to introduce a program that's going to help you maybe beat out a cash buyer if you're looking to buy a home. So Laurence, welcome. I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for having me, Paul. Yeah, it's a pleasure, and love working with you guys always. And I'm just honored to be here to help educate some of your followers and put a little light into what's going on in this crazy world we're living in today.
Yeah, so let's just touch very briefly about the interest rates, right? We've talked about the hike, and what's the impact? So if the Fed raises their interest rate a quarter point, it's not that mortgage rates are going to go up a quarter point. We might see them go up even more, right?
Right, that's exactly right. It really has very little to do with what the Feds do as far as raising or lowering interest rates. There's more of an impact on what the Feds say during those meetings, what's going to happen next. In fact, a lot of these interest rate hikes have already been priced into our rates. So they're looking to see what's going on next, what's going to happen, what are they going to do after these hikes. And I'll tell you, inflation is the big driver right now. That's really what's got the rates all churned up. If we can get the inflation under control in this country, we're going to start to see rates stabilize and possibly even go back down in a good direction.
Well, that's good news. I probably wouldn't, recommend to people to wait for them to go back down, because look, if you need to get into a home, it's certainly better to buy it now. And if rates go back down, just do a refinance, right? Wouldn't that be a good recommendation?
Oh, absolutely. And we've been pretty spoiled, really, for the last 3 years. I mean, we've never seen interest rates this low in the history of mortgages. And we're talking about 70, 80 years of mortgages in this country. And so anybody who was fortunate enough to be able to buy or refinance in the last 3 years, their timing was perfect. They hit it. It'd be like buying, Apple when it was being sold for $10 a share, and then selling it when it was at, $500 a share. And so we all know that, that's just a timing thing. And those people were really fortunate. But one thing I'm continually pointing out to my clients is let's look at the history of interest rates. Let's look at, talk to your dad or your grandfather or somebody in the last 20, 30 years that has purchased a house, and ask them what their rate was when they bought their first house. And so relatively speaking, the interest rates are still incredibly attractive. We're still within a couple points of the lowest interest rates ever offered in history. So it's still a great time to buy. It's still a great time to finance. And you're exactly right, Paul. If you were to buy today, and then let's say rates went down a year from now, 2 years, whenever, refinancing may be a good option for a lot of those folks as well.
Absolutely, because the choice is, look, if you're looking to upsize or downsize or just move into something better or different than what you have now, you know, what is the cost of waiting? Well, it could cost you quite a bit. And wouldn't you rather, you know, if you're trying to time the market, I mean, that's one of the hardest things you can ever do. Even as a real estate agent for doing this over 20 years, it's nearly impossible to time the market. I bought a house in 2017, and at that point, the market was crazy. And I had to buy a home that was pre-listed because there was a bidding war at that time. And I was like, oh, do I buy now or do I not? Right. But I really needed to make that purchase. And I'm grateful that I did, because, you know, over time, it's going to appreciate. And if the market takes a downturn, you got to remember that the downturn is only going to affect you on paper. And you know, so your value might go down a little bit, but your payment's going to stay the same, because your principal and interest payment is locked in for the 30-year mortgage, and you're in at a lower interest rate. But we could realistically see rates going back up to 7-8%, right? That would be more of a normal rate. When you look at, even there's a 200-year history of interest rates, and you know, the lowest cycle before this was in 1945, and that was the previous low, and that was due to the war, right? That's how the government had to finance the war. But you know, my first house was purchased in 1985. I paid 11.5% for an adjustable rate mortgage, and so you know it. You know, when interest rates spiked back then in 1981 up to 18%, we didn't see a crash of the market. We saw a flattening out of the market through almost the entire 80s. Because I use this example, I bought a house for $120,000 from a guy who owned it for 4 years, who bought it for $120,000. And then 3 years later, I sold that house for $120,000. So for a 7-year period, the market was flat, and you just couldn't get any more for the home. And so that's kind of, I'm kind of wishful thinking that maybe by interest rates raising, our market will then stabilize a little bit more and eliminate some of this chaotic buying. But how do you feel about that, Laurence?
Yeah, I mean, as rates go up, there are unfortunately more and more people that can no longer afford to buy a house, at least in a particular price range. And so we're seeing, you know, kind of the double whammy right now. We got rising prices of houses, and we've got rising interest rates. So you know, one of the things that all the clients are always looking at is what their current situation is versus buying, right? So, you know, if they're renting, how much are they paying in rent? What are they getting for that rent versus what would their payment be if they were to buy a house? And still to this day, with the prices going up, with interest rates going up, it still makes sense in most cases for them to buy, and their payments, you know, end up either going down from what they're renting for a very comparable house, or staying the same. And one of the things that I'm constantly pointing out to the clients is the tax benefits of buying a house. I mean, not only has buying real estate been a sound investment throughout history, from a point of appreciation, but also the tax benefits of buying a house are not always looked at. And I think that's an important factor. Being able to write off the interest every year, being able to write off the real estate taxes, it brings a real net tangible benefit to clients when it comes tax time. And so they're not really fairly comparing maybe what they're paying for rent versus what their mortgage would be. But I think that has to be factored in. So in other words, if you're paying $2,000 a month in rent and you have a mortgage payment that ends up being $2,500, on the surface, that looks like you're paying $500 more. But in reality, by the time you get the tax breaks, you're probably paying the same or even a little less than you were with that $2,000 rent. So I think it's important that we continually educate our clients about some of the benefits that they're getting with buying a house that they're not really necessarily looking at right now. But getting back to your market question, I think you're exactly right, Paul, in that this is going to help stabilize the market. Right now, we've got an inventory issue. We've got way more buyers than we do sellers, and that's really what's driving up the price. And so if we get some of those buyers out of the market, whether it's the higher interest rates or the higher sales price or both, then we're gonna lower that demand, and eventually that's gonna help stabilize the market a little bit better.
Yeah, and the builders play a big part too, in that they're not keeping up with the demand, building new homes, and they're really limiting the number of homes that they're releasing and building, in part because of the supply chain, in part because of the demand is so high. And so, with that, it creates other problems. Now, in a report that I saw, based on where we are today, that it's taken years for us to get to this point. So it's going to take years for us to get out of this situation to where it gets better. And I kind of sense the same thing. I think it's going to take some time. They've got to figure out, how do we fix this problem, right? Because there's more than just one thing that's creating this problem. And so it's going to take a multi-level type situation to be able to create a better scenario. So in the meantime, people have to live somewhere, right? And they've got to be able to decide whether they're just going to keep renting, feeding the investor or the person that is paying a mortgage on that and paying off their mortgage, or do they want to get in the home that they want? And maybe you might have to settle for a little bit less, right? There's people that want to buy a home and they can't get into the home of their dreams, but they might be able to get into more of a starter home, okay, and then build some equity. Because that part has never changed. It's always that, look, you get into a home, and then through building equity in that home, you can then make the jump to that next home that is really more of the home of your dreams, right? Because you're utilizing the equity that you build in order to help offset the purchase of that next home. And I think people need to understand that you have to be able to sacrifice something to get into that home, at least get started, versus just keep paying rent and throwing your money away.
Yeah, and we're starting to see people, stretch out a little bit too. I mean, Central Florida is getting a lot bigger right now, and that's not a bad thing, And a lot of times people want to, live out in places where, there's less traffic, a little more breathing room, and so we're seeing sort of that rural crawl, if you will. And you can get a lot more bang for your buck in a lot of cases when you're willing to get a little bit, further out of the city. One of the cool things, Paul, is that, a lot of, COVID changed a lot of things for us, and there's a heck of a lot more people that have the ability to work from home. And so it really doesn't matter where they live. In fact, I've got a lot of out-of-state buyers right now that are moving to Florida. And some of it may be because of the things that are going on in Florida that may not be happening in their states, or vice versa, things that are happening in their states that are driving them here to Florida, and it might be a better fit for those folks. So we're seeing a lot of that going on, and so one thing I'm constantly pointing out to my clients is that Florida's a great place to live, and it's going to continue to be that way, and so I think the demand in that sense is going to help keep, the property value stabilized. Even if we continue to see interest rates going up, I don't think it's going to have much of an effect on property values. And I think that we're going to continue to see Florida just to be a great place, a great real estate investment opportunity for folks. So, so I think that's, one of the big driving factors right now is where are you going to get the most bang for your buck, and we're seeing it stretching out a little bit in Florida.
Yeah, and we're seeing a lot of people too. They're moving from Orange County and they're going out to Lake County, Volusia County, Osceola County, Polk County, and it's actually a good move because you're getting so much more home, and some of these communities are just like pretty amazing. And another thing too is just as people are coming in from out of states, it's really important to understand that when people are coming from out west to Florida, coming from the Northeast to Florida, our prices are still much lower than what they were seeing where they're coming from. Our rents are much lower, and our cost of living is much lower. So that's part of why they're coming here. And that's a whole nother video in and of itself, talking about why people are coming to Florida. But, one of the things that's really critical right now is that we're seeing over 30% and I think it might even be closer to 40, but over 30% of sales are being made by cash buyers. And those cash buyers, some of them are the people relocating here, but a good majority of them are institutional buyers. And so how can we compete when we're making an offer for a buyer and they're having the finance? How do we compete with a cash offer? Because cash is king, right? Well, Laurence, you have a new program that I'm super excited about that can help a buyer. And why don't you share us? We'll close with this. Share us what your program is about and how we can get buyers into that program.
Yeah, absolutely. So the program's called Ribbon, and we're fortunate to be one of the only preferred lenders that has partnered with the Ribbon program. The reason why we got picked is because they know the strength of our company and our pre-approvals. We're known for this. We're known for making sure we take every step possible on the front end to assure that our clients are properly pre-approved and that nothing's going to keep their financing from going through. So because of this, Ribbon has partnered with us. So what Ribbon does in essence is if they approve the client and the property for the program, then they will back the offer as a cash offer. So they take all of the financing contingencies out of the offer and basically posture the client to become a cash buyer. So they first charge a fee for this. There's a 1% fee if you use the program and you still end up getting your financing. But where the beauty of this program also comes in, Paul, is not only is it putting them in a cash position, if you have a client that has some sort of a contingency that could possibly hold up or affect their financing, like selling a home in order to buy the new home, then Ribbon can jump in and they can close on the house. If you're unable to get financing and they've already approved you, then they will close on the house and pay cash for it. And then you can fix whatever it is that caused you to not get that financing. And then Ribbon will sell the house to you at that point. And they give you 6 months to do this. So it's been a great program. It's definitely helping. And and you're, being an agent representing, both buyers and sellers, the importance of, or the difference of having somebody that does not have a financing contingency and basically in essence is a cash buyer versus someone that needs financing.
Yeah, and that's really important. I mean, we want to give the buyers as much strength as we can, and also, it's something too. As as I talk to sellers, we try to kind of pull at their heartstrings too, and say, hey, look, do you really want to sell to Wall Street, or would you rather have somebody actually get into your home that deserves it and is really trying to get into a home. And it does help put things into perspective for sellers sometimes, and so that's one of the things that we do try to do when working with the buyers is match them up with a home seller that might be more willing to do that, because we have found out too that sometimes the investors that are buying are not always the best buyer in every situation. Sometimes there are right situations for it, but sometimes it's going to be a typical home buyer that would be the best buyer for that home. And so the Ribbon program sounds like a great way for an average person like myself even to be able to jump into a home where, I can't pay cash, but yet I can get qualified and we can write up an offer as if it's a cash offer and there's no financing contingency. And that's going to help give a winning edge, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've had buyers that have made, we're talking 10, 15 houses that they've made offers on, and none of them are getting accepted. And those are the kind of folks that love this program. What we're finding out, Paul, is that in a lot of cases, they're able to buy a house for less than they would had they not had this backing. Because again, if you've got two offers coming in on a house, one of them is cash and the other one requires financing, even if the cash offer is coming in at a lower price, there's a good likelihood that a seller is going to accept that offer because it's just a less risky opportunity, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, so that could bring it in a little bit less, and then we don't have to worry so much about the appraisal gap, which that's a whole nother conversation, I think, for another time, because we don't want to, we could go on for hours talking about this and all the possibilities and the ins and outs. But this has been truly very informative, Laurence. I appreciate you taking the time to share with us here today. And of course, the ribbon program is really enticing and intriguing. And so if you want more information about the ribbon program or what Laurence can do for you, he can be available on his cell phone at 407-448-3303. You can reach out to him anytime. See, that's another thing. I know Laurence is accessible. And so, and when he's not directly accessible, he's got people covering for him. So it doesn't matter if it's evenings or weekends. And that's really important in our industry. The big box stores, they're, pretty much 9 to 5. And if you need some help after hours or on the weekends, there's not going to be anybody there to help. So, so Laurence, again, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. Any last word that you might have?
No, I'll just piggyback on what you just said, Paul, and just say the importance today of having a great team all the way around the board. Your lender, your realtor. I mean, if you're going to compete in this market, you got to have a great team. You got to have that all-star team working for you. And I love working with you, and it's always great transactions, and we get them to the finish line, and that's really what the goal is find a great house and get them closed. So I appreciate the opportunity to work with you and your clients at any time, for sure.
It is all about the teamwork. And as I teach agents that get into this business, it's like, create your team. And it doesn't mean bringing in other agents necessarily, but have that team of people around you, your support system that you're going to be working with in transactions. And the stronger the team, the stronger you become as an agent, and the better you can work for your buyers and sellers in this market. So, Laurence, thanks again. I appreciate you being here. And again, everybody, I'm Paul Fidinich with the VIP Home Team at eXp Realty. Be sure to like this video, subscribe, so you can get all of our future videos. And there's a lot more informative videos coming your way. So I look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you, Paul.